Life in a nursing home. The nightmare of old age. Thomas Walker, an 85-year-old veteran, had once bravely faced war, loss, and the ups and downs of life. But perhaps he never imagined that the hardest battle of all would come in his final years. A battle against loneliness and disappointment. Despite his deep love for his children, Thomas couldn't shake off the sadness of realizing how busy their lives had become. He hated the feeling of being seen as a frail old man in need of care. Hated waiting for brief visits and watching family dinners grow less frequent. In a moment of frustration, he declared to his children that he would move into a nursing home, a place that, according to advertisements, promised attentive care and a peaceful life. His children tried to dissuade him, but his mind was made up. The day he packed his belongings and walked into the nursing home, he believed he was making the right choice, that this decision would allow him to live independently, without burdening anyone. But he was wrong. Within days, he realized the harsh truth. The nursing home was not a place to enjoy old age, but an invisible prison where he slowly lost his freedom, dignity, and even the joy of living. If this topic resonates with you, stay with me until the end. Some of these lessons might surprise you. And if you know someone considering moving into a nursing home, this video might be exactly what they need to hear before making a life-altering decision. Now, let's take a look at how Mr. Thomas began his life in the nursing home. An experience that later turned into a nightmare and severe depression for him. The brutal limitations of nursing homes. From the very first days in the nursing home, Thomas felt the stark reality of understaffing and the lack of attentive care that the facility had once promised. The nursing home was constantly overcrowded, with too few caregivers burdened with the responsibility of tending to dozens, sometimes even hundreds of elderly residents. No one had enough time to truly care for each individual, leaving Thomas, a man who had lived a disciplined and orderly life, feeling more helpless than ever. Every morning, he had to wait for hours just to get assistance with dressing or personal hygiene, things that had once been simple, everyday routines, like taking a daily shower, enjoying an afternoon walk, or simply sipping a hot cup of tea, had now become rare privileges. When he requested more frequent showers, a caregiver merely shrugged and replied coldly, "You have to wait your turn. We don't have enough staff to serve everyone immediately." And just like that, his request, like so many others, was forgotten. The meals at the nursing home were another major disappointment. The food was lacking in nutrition, poorly prepared, and often arrived cold by the time it reached him. Bland, repetitive dishes slowly stripped away his appetite. On some days, due to staff shortages, meals were delayed for hours, leaving him to endure long periods of hunger. With each passing day, Thomas began to realize that he was no longer seen as an individual with his own needs and desires, but rather just another cog in the rigid, unfeeling machinery of the nursing home, where time and care were distributed with chilling indifference. Losing freedom. Before moving into the nursing home, Mr. Thomas could still enjoy simple yet meaningful things. Morning walks around the neighborhood, picking out his favorite meals, or chatting with familiar neighbors. He had the freedom to set his own schedule and live life on his own terms. But once he entered the facility, all of that freedom was taken away. Every activity in the nursing home followed a rigid schedule with no exceptions. He couldn't leave the premises without supervision. Even when he just wanted to step outside for some fresh air or gaze at the sky, he had to ask for permission and wait. But no one had the time to accommodate his request. He missed the days when he could freely walk into his backyard, sit under a tree, sip tea, and listen to the birds sing. Now, he could only see the sky through the small window of his cramped room. It wasn't just the physical restrictions. His personal choices were also controlled. Every morning, he was woken up at a fixed time, regardless of whether he was tired or wanted to sleep in. Meals were served according to a predetermined menu, bland and repetitive. He couldn't request a different dish, or simply eat when he was actually hungry. Even making a phone call to his children required waiting for the designated time. Whenever he missed his family, he could only hope for a chance to talk to them. Yet many times his request was denied with the excuse that it's not the right time. He felt like he was no longer a person with the right to make decisions about his own life, but rather a prisoner trapped in a cage without bars. If you're still watching this video and find this information valuable, please comment the number 2 below to let me know you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, I highly encourage you to do so and turn on notifications so you won't miss any upcoming videos. Your support helps us continue creating quality content to inform and inspire you. Financial burden. Not only did Mr. Thomas lose his freedom, but he also faced an increasing financial burden that weighed heavily on both himself and his family. The nursing home he chose was advertised as a place with dedicated care and a comfortable living environment, but all those promises came with an exorbitant price tag. When he first moved in, he believed that his pension and lifelong savings would be enough to cover the costs. However, the harsh reality quickly made him realize that what he was paying for was nowhere near what he was actually receiving. Each month, the facility fees skyrocketed with a long list of additional charges. Besides accommodation and food, there were hidden costs such as personal care fees, medical support fees, and recreational activity fees, even though in reality, these activities were almost non-existent. As his health declined, the facility recommended specialized care services at an even higher price. Yet despite paying more, the quality of care remained unchanged. His children, despite their busy lives, tried to contribute extra money to ensure he had the best possible care. But they soon realized that no matter how much they spent, Mr. Thomas still had to endure long waits just to receive assistance with basic needs, eat poorly prepared meals lacking nutrition, and live in isolation. Essential services like physical therapy and routine health checkups were also cut back to maximize the nursing home's profits. Over time, he no longer felt like a person receiving care, but rather a commodity in a business system where old age was turned into a source of profit for those in charge. Feelings of loneliness and isolation. Even though he was surrounded by other elderly residents in similar circumstances, Mr. Thomas felt an overwhelming sense of loneliness. In the beginning, he tried to make friends with those living in the nursing home, but most of them struggled with various health issues. Some suffered from memory loss, others were too exhausted to hold a conversation, and some preferred to retreat into their own silent world. Conversations became increasingly rare, smiles faded, and gradually, he felt lost in the crowd. Before, even though his children and grandchildren were busy, he still had warm moments with his family. But now visits became infrequent. The strict regulations of the nursing home made it difficult to see his loved ones. Every visit was brief, closely monitored by staff and rushed. As the door closed behind his family members, he felt abandoned once again. According to an article in The New Yorker, many nursing homes today suffer from understaffing and poor management, leading to a significant decline in the quality of care. This not only affects the physical health of residents, but also has a devastating impact on their mental well-being. Mr. Thomas increasingly sank into a sense of isolation. There was no one to share old stories with, no one who truly listened. Each day, he could only sit in silence by the window, hoping that someone would walk through the door and bring him a small touch of warmth and companionship. But that hope drifted further away with time. Declining quality of life. Not only was Mr. Thomas affected emotionally, but his physical health also deteriorated significantly after moving into the nursing home. Before, despite his old age, he maintained a healthy lifestyle, taking morning walks, tending to his small garden, and preparing nutritious meals for himself. But now, all of that had become a thing of the past. The food at the nursing home lacked variety and failed to meet the nutritional needs of the elderly. Every meal was prepared in a bland, repetitive manner, sometimes served cold and of poor quality. Mr. Thomas voiced his concerns multiple times, only to be met with indifferent shrugs and the same response. This is the standard menu. Gradually, he lost his appetite, ate just enough to get by, and his body grew weaker by the day. Furthermore, the environment in the nursing home did not encourage physical activity. He spent most of his time sitting or lying in bed, causing his joints to stiffen and ache. The facility lacked sufficient staff to assist him with movement, and regular physical therapy sessions were non-existent. Back pain and joint pain became a constant struggle, Yet whenever he requested medical assistance, he was merely handed a few painkillers without any real treatment. Additionally, recreational activities in the nursing home were painfully limited. His free time revolved around watching the clock tick by. There were no engaging gatherings, no joyful conversations, and no mentally stimulating activities. The days passed in quiet emptiness, leaving behind a profound sense of loneliness and isolation. If you're still watching this video and find this information valuable, please comment the number 8 below to let me know you're here. If you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on notifications to ensure you never miss a video. Your support allows us to continue creating high-quality content that informs and inspires. Retaliation for complaints, the silent punishment. At first, Mr. Thomas believed that voicing his concerns to the nursing home's management would help improve the quality of life for himself and those around him. He simply wanted quieter nights, a cleaner restroom, basic rights that anyone should have. But he never imagined that his complaints would become the very reason he was treated even worse. It started with small things. When he pressed the call button for assistance, no one came. If before he had to wait only 10 to 15 minutes for help, now he could wait for hours, sometimes the entire night. Occasionally, his meals arrived late, cold, or were completely forgotten. When he asked the staff, they merely shrugged and said, "It must have been a mistake. Please understand." His stomach pains grew worse, yet every time he requested medical attention, he was met with indifference. One night, he endured agonizing stomach cramps, unable to sleep, but no one came to check on him until the following morning. Cold, isolated, and helpless, Mr. Thomas slowly lost his will to fight. Previously, he had made efforts to socialize, to engage in conversation with those around him. But gradually, he felt like an unwanted presence, forgotten in a place that was supposed to care for him. He withdrew, no longer eager to talk or make friends. Each passing day, he felt himself fading away, disappearing into the silence and neglect of the system. The family's decision. At first, Mr. Thomas's children believed that the nursing home would provide him with a better life, a place with proper care and comfort. They were busy with work and their own families, thinking that sending him there was the best way to ensure he received adequate attention. But their brief visits, reassured by the staff's words, were not enough to reveal the harsh reality. Everything changed one day when they decided to visit unannounced. The first thing they saw was Mr. Thomas sitting quietly in the corner of his room, his eyes empty, his body frilier than ever. The small, lifeless, and cold room was nothing compared to the most heartbreaking sight of all. His expression, a mix of resignation and despair. They couldn't believe this was the strong, disciplined man they once knew. Without hesitation, they decided to bring him home immediately. At first, Mr. Thomas resisted, still believing he would be a burden to his children. But this time they stood firm. They told him that family was not an obligation, but a place where love and care were meant to be shared. They promised to take turns looking after him, so he would never feel abandoned again. The first days back home were not easy, but gradually, Mr. Thomas regained his spirit. He ate better, started engaging in family conversations, and even smiled more often. Most importantly, he realized that he was still loved. And in the final years of his life, that was the most precious thing of all. A wake-up call. Mr. Thomas's story is not an isolated case. In reality, millions of elderly people around the world are facing a harsh truth. Nursing homes are not the peaceful sanctuaries they once imagined. Despite being marketed with promises of attentive care, dedicated medical services, and a welcoming community, many nursing homes operate as profit-driven businesses, where financial gain takes precedence over residents' well-being. Understaffing, deteriorating facilities, and inadequate care not only leave the elderly feeling lonely, but also have severe impacts on their mental and physical health. Poor quality meals, long nights without assistance, and moments of longing for family that are met only with indifference. This is the reality that many elderly individuals are enduring today. The question remains. The question is, can the elderly truly find peace in nursing homes? Or is it only within their families that they receive genuine care and love? In today's fast-paced society, Children may not always be able to be with their parents 24/7. However, instead of viewing nursing homes as the first option, perhaps we need to reconsider better solutions, such as home care models, or, at the very least, ensuring that the elderly are not abandoned in the very places meant to care for them. It's time for us to reflect. Old age should not be a time of loneliness and neglect, but rather years filled with love and respect. Backhand index pointing right. Share this post with your loved ones, so we can all live happily, stay healthy, and make the most of our later years. Flexed biceps smiling face with smiling eyes. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below, and share one thing you learned today along with how you plan to apply it in your life. Your thoughts matter to us, so don't hesitate to share. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating high-quality content to inform and inspire you. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.